What's going on, everyone? What's going on? What's going on? I don't know what the hell, but that breaking news, that timing, like, what in the world? Why? I just want to know why. They literally did this ahead of CPI data. For what reason? Did they literally just want to cancel the entire CPI data? And I was actually just about to find something real quick. Literally, as I started up live, I'm like, hold on, let me go look for something real quick. And I'm pretty sure, yes, I was right. Okay. So here's the funny part. This is what I was pretty much looking at when you pretty much heard me on live like earlier this morning, and I was asking Sig, I was pretty much asking him, I'm like, do you have a scanner that pretty much picks up the 52-week lows? Oddly enough, Tom went and actually created me a scanner for the 52-week lows, and guess what? That scanner actually had Amazon on the 52-week low. So just a shocker. And the next thing I know, I got someone tagged me. I forgot exactly who it was that tagged me in chat and told me to go look at Amazon, and they wanted to know what my levels were. So I told them if it holds a certain level, I think it was somewhere around like 27.76 or something like that, and then it will get to X, Y, and Z or something like that. And then next thing I know, I started looking through Robinhood and I just started scrolling through Robinhood. And I'm like, all right. And I just happened to click on Amazon and I'm like, it's just literally coiling here. I tell Sig, guess what? Sig literally just goes and he buys Amazon calls. And next thing you know, now we're looking at this over about 100, it's about up about $187. Would not shock me by tomorrow morning, following upgrades, following all the CNBC pumps, that this thing is going to be pushing well north of about 3,100 by tomorrow morning. It would not shock me. I didn't want to actually particularly look at the chart itself. I think it actually justifies to look more so at the weekly here, just to be more so to get a bigger picture where we're likely headed towards. But the timing on that, I think it was just insanely crazy, just because of the fact that you had such a monster run already. I mean, CPI data is coming in tomorrow. Shorts are likely already starting to scale in, if not pile in, going into that data tomorrow. And Amazon just pulls some shit like this, in which Amazon can literally just carry the market here tomorrow. Despite whatever comes out by end of tonight or tomorrow, Amazon can literally just carry us. That is insanely crazy. The only thing I literally did swing was Tesla calls, and yeah, I'm a little bit salty about that. It happened to, telling Sig literally looking at the call on Amazon and him getting in and not me getting in. Yeah, I'm a little bit salty about that. And the next thing I know, I just see Mr. Cumin over here with his 20 calls in the money on Amazon that are weeklies that expire this Friday. Yeah, I'm a little bit salty about that. I'm gonna be honest, right? Because that is a hell of a bag right there. You literally just caught a Mercedes Benz right there by the time you wake up. Real easy. That's literally what you're looking at right now. But by the way, welcome in everyone. I just went on a little rant about that. But that is a hell of a damn move. I mean, the timing is just a shock to me. But as I pretty much look in real quick, because I'm pretty sure everyone wants to look at what the chart is pretty much telling us. I mean, and I just got a notification that Amazon is pretty much just trending on stock tweets. Everyone's pretty much just talking about it. This is just bonkers right now. I'm sure there's people that are probably buying shares right now. I would not even doubt it. But the amount of what we already had, the Apple split, we already had the Nvidia split. Um, the Google split was just announced. Like the timing right on this one just seems so insanely crazy. Do I think it has room, Thomas? That's what I'm literally gonna be looking at. That's why I wanted to pull up the weekly. And what I was pretty much mentioning right in the middle of my rant is that likely by the time that we wake up tomorrow, following some upgrades and also following the pumps that we're gonna get between Bloomberg and CNBC, it's more than likely that this is gonna be pushing well over $200 in gains by tomorrow morning, in which it's gonna be over that 3K mark. But what I was pretty much wanting to look at, and if I'm pretty much just looking at hindsight right now, is that I pretty much wanted to chart out where we ended up breaking down here on Amazon. And that's what I pretty much wanted to get a well-defined image of. And this is the trendline support that I'm looking at, in which we broke down from towards the end of last year, basically end of December. And if we're really gonna continue this pump, we can end up pushing this north here towards 34, mid 3450 here is what I'm looking at, in which we retest basically with that spot of where we broke down from. That's really what I'm looking at, because if you actually notice, we can go all the way up there to that 3450 mark, and that'll be a retest of this breakdown that we had that was initially prior trendline support along that entire chop that we had dating back towards basically the middle of 2020. So if you remember, we were pretty much just in this entire little chop zone between the middle of 2020 towards the entire year of 2022. We literally just had this entire range that we were trading within. We had this beautiful trend line support though, and that's what I'm looking at in terms of where this potential target is. So 3450 is literally ideally what I'm looking at. If I were to be looking at into calls tomorrow, I would be looking at the 3450 calls going out towards next week. Obviously, the other factor is that premiums are going to be so juiced tomorrow, and they are going to be very costly. So I just want to caution those of you with small accounts and whatnot, try to use some called debit spreads is what I would suggest. Maybe try not to get in right at the open. That's probably the best thing I could probably say, especially for those of you that you basically just don't want to get caught in the premium spike. Because that's exactly what you're going to get tomorrow morning is that heavy premium spike. And if this pretty much gives you that dip and then the run, you're going to find yourself in pretty much in a hole. Okay. So that's the other thing I pretty much want to caution about. Wait a little bit until the market open. Wait to see if you get the dip. Even though I know FOMO is pretty much just hitting. I'm not even looking at chat right now in the Discord. And I'm pretty sure it's probably still lit and everyone's still talking about it. And I wouldn't even doubt it. But just remember that premiums are going to be spiked tomorrow morning. So just wait it out just a bit after the opening bell tomorrow. Wait to see what kind of price action you get. I would hope for a dip and rip. My only pause right now is trying to give you pretty much the level in which you want to look at. If I'm really looking at in terms of like a particular level in which I really like here, is that it's right around this level of this 2881, which I fear that you're not even going to see this anymore. It's going to blow past that. But that was ultimately the level that you wanted to see us break north of. Uh, Obviously, we didn't see that until obviously after hours, but that's the level that I was particularly watching. That I had this resistance. I cleared the entire chart here to pretty much chart it scratch from scratch. But that was literally the level I was watching. Is this 2887 to be exact? That was the level I was watching. In which, if you see back from 2020, that was the level that we were pretty much just waking off of. It's 2888 here, 2881 here, and then right here was also about 2876 that they have the low. But when I looked at it, it was about 2888 is the level that I was particularly watching that I wanted to see us cross up. All right. So that's what I was looking for. Ideally, that would potentially be the ideal dip spot or the breakout spot. That's no longer pretty much feasible. So moving up that chain right now, as I pretty much look to see where our next level of potential support or resistance is that we're sitting right around here. In which, if I look to see exactly what those levels are, yeah, we're sitting right around 2951 is that level that is what you're watching for. So I'm hoping that is potentially the dip in run spot 2951 to 2952. That is your ideal spot right now, in which that's your cushion spot right there. That you're looking for a potential dip tomorrow morning and then your rip. All right. So that way you're not getting the FOMO right out the opening bell. You're not getting caught in this premium spike at the open. And then you just wait to see if you get that dip. Otherwise, if we get a breakout, and this is a big if, obviously, because it's going to depend how much we end up gapping up even more by tomorrow morning off of those pumps on CNBC, Bloomberg, all those different channels. And then the analyst upgrades that are going to also follow. But if I'm looking for a next one in which I'm pretty much, ideally, I'm looking at different levels here that pretty much stand out. Looking at the next level that really stands out to me, it's right around here is the next level that's what's standing out to me. This is my next level in which I'm looking to see if this is going to be another key level. Right around this 3025 mark is what I'm going to be watching for. So like I said, I do expect it to open over 3K. So if we get this move over 3025, then that'll be your breakout spot potentially. So it does depend upon where we end up opening, right? So you're pretty much playing as level by level. 3025 will be your breakout spot in which you're looking to get a breakout, possibly a retest off of that spot, and then you just buy it up to get the run tomorrow. Otherwise, if you don't end up particularly breaking over that 3K mark by pre-market tomorrow, then you're looking for this potential dip here down to that 2988 level is what I said there, is what we're looking at. All right. So that's what I'll be watching for. Particularly, I think anything can change here by morning. That's the only other bad part. I know I'm gonna be on live tomorrow morning, pretty much looking at this chart yet again. So I'll make sure that I get on live pretty much pre-market before the opening bell, so I can particularly look at this chart to see what level we're sitting at pre-market. Because I am ranting about this right now, but I do think that there's gonna be we're gonna be looking at something probably completely different and likely north of 3K tomorrow morning. That's my only positive concern right now. All right. So that's the only thing. In case any of you have any questions or concerns, I know that the other factor that I was looking at just before I popped on live, because I was pulling up the actual levels, just considering of how much we actually moved. But just to give you an insight, we're looking at the 9-day moving average. That was 29.4388. We literally blew past that level. The other key level was crossing the 18-day moving average, which that is at $3,005.01. That's another key level that you're watching, in which I say it's likely going to be north of 3K tomorrow. That's a key level to be watching, 30.05. And then the next level that I was particularly watching beyond that would be your 1 month high, which is sitting at 32.14. So if we do get this rally, 32.14.53 is your 1 month high. And then the next one is your 13-week high that really stands out is 35.18. So those are key levels, as you guys are likely going to be looking to get calls pretty much outdated, maybe more so. Those are key levels that you really want to be paying attention to. The 35.18 being that the uh the 13-week high. I think it is a stretch because again, I think we're gonna end up retesting this prior support as resistance as we get this move up basically. Sitting at where we are right now, I think we're gonna just basically retest that prior support as resistance and we get this move up here towards 34.50. That's what my anticipation is. How fast it's gonna particularly get there, that's gonna be the big question mark. So that's why I say if you're feeling frisky and you want to go for a lotto for this week, use a call debit spread out towards that 34.50 for this coming Friday. Basically, I mean, you're basically gonna have tomorrow and Friday. So, of course, you want to treat it like a lotto. Do not go crazy. That's what I will be looking at if we really see a lot of FOMO going into this and we see this run pretty hard within the next 2 days here. Otherwise, you're looking to get, if you want to play it on the safe end, you're looking to play this 34.50 target at the retest here towards next week, in which you get a nice little call spread. But I know that premiums are going to be pretty juiced tomorrow. That's my only concern. And again, getting in at the opening bell, for those of you that didn't hear, you're going to get caught in a premium spike. So if you end up getting in right at the opening bell and we dip, it's going to hurt you even if we start to pretty much just bounce right off of whatever that dip spot is. All right. So that's my only concern right now. So I want to make sure I throw that out there for you guys. I know that FOMO is pretty much going to get to everyone. And I know that the chat is still going crazy off of this entire madness of the split. But hopefully that gives you better insight. Just crossing my mind right now, in terms of all the names that had just given us stock splits right now, the Apples and the Nvidias, the Googles, now Amazon. I think, the only other two names that really stand out to me right now that even have a shot at this, I think in my case, it will probably be Chipotle and Booking, which I think the next one will likely be Chipotle. I mean, that's the only other name that's left to really stand out to me. Tesla, I don't necessarily think that's going to end up happening just because of the fact that I think the stock is going to get beaten down more so, and it's not over what I would say is high premium to really get a nice little stock split. Unless Elon Musk really wanted to just feel frisky and do like a 3 or 4 1 stock split, I don't think that's going to happen. But if I was going down the chain and looking at the names that were pretty much left on the board that are trading north of that 1K mark per se, I think I'm looking at names like a Booking or Chipotle in terms of what's next to get a stock split. That's pretty much what I'm sure everyone's trying to time here. But obviously, we're pretty much pleading for this Amazon stock split for what the past 3 years, and now we get it in the middle of all this market volatility, ahead of the most key data that everyone's looking at tomorrow. That timing could not have been more impeccable, more low key, basically, than right now. Because I don't think anyone anticipated that at all in terms of the timing. I know that we're all praying for it to happen, right? Here finally it is here. But again, if I'm looking for the names that are probably most likely, if I had to give you a name that I think is next, honestly, I do think it would be Chipotle. That would be the next name in terms of a stock split. But there's nothing else that particularly stands out that's pretty much left on the board to give us a stock split for this year. Um, I'll probably have to go through some high flyer names that's already been just trading so high because I haven't been trading too many names that are up there. But just the names that stand out was booking in Chipotle automatically. And I'll probably look at some other names here tomorrow while we're pretty much looking at different things. But that's pretty much what I wanted to pretty much go across. But other than that, I'm hoping that there's something else that somebody else is pretty much looking at because right now Amazon is even giving me FOMO right now. I'm just really salty about the fact that I literally told Sig about it. I had someone made me look at it, and I actually did not get into it. I actually chose Tesla instead. But speaking of Tesla, while I pretty much just give you an update of what I was looking at real quick, because I will see if anyone has any takers that they're holding or what they want me to look at. But what I was particularly looking at with Tesla, in which I pretty much sniped the bottom off of the little rounding bottom action we had. First, I was looking at pretty much on the 4 hour here. You had a nice little retracement. That was a 786 retracement that we had off of yesterday's price action. So that did give me a nice indication here that we were going to get the bounce. Obviously, we see the nice bounce. We saw the beautiful continuation. Now, if I pretty much dial in on today's price action, what I was looking at was this rounding bottom action here on Tesla. That's what I was looking at. I pretty much sniped right at towards the end of where this rounding bottom action decided it wanted to take off. So I got in right here, right around 840, 850, low 850 is when I got in, right around that mark. I think it might have been right around here, if I'm not mistaken. Forgot exactly what time I called it out. It could have been 848 to 849 here, in which I got in, and it literally just went and started moving up. So that was just a beautiful one. I am holding this one. I'm swinging this one overnight. But and then also my upper target. That was the next thing I was gonna mention. I was looking at pretty much the downtrend resistance that we're currently sitting at. You can see it pretty much off of the line chart here is what it pretty much gives you a better indication. You pretty much smack it right off the line chart in terms of resistance that we're hitting. And then going right back down into my candles here, I was pretty much sitting here right at the 886 mark is what I'm looking at in terms of the zone here. 886 up towards 890 is what I'm looking at in terms of my target here likely tomorrow. So I would hope this ends up pushing behind Amazon. Obviously the Qs are pretty much going to be just continuing this rally behind Amazon. That would be the anticipation here. Obviously, I think regardless whatever the CPI data is tomorrow, I think just at least for tomorrow, we're likely in the clear in which the market's going to continue. Whatever kind of consolidation SPY is going to give us, but it's likely going to be at least a gap up that we're looking at, right? So that's what I'm pretty much looking at in terms of hopefully Tesla following suit right in behind Amazon. I just want to also peep across the board here, likely see what some other names are doing. Apple's pretty much red here after hours. Looking across the Qs here, Microsoft is red. Let's take a peep at Facebook. Facebook is also red. So I guess all the other names in the queues here are pretty much red. Netflix is up just slightly green here. And then also looking at Google, you can take a peep. Google's down about $7. So hopefully we see some kind of red to green action here on the queues following behind suit of Amazon. But that's what I'll be primarily looking at pre-market is looking at the levels on Amazon, and then I'll be focusing pretty much on whether Tesla's going to be following suit behind Amazon in the queues, and that'll be what I'll be peeping at. Of course, the CPI data right now is pretty much the back of my mind right now, but obviously that's pretty much the biggest thing in which the market really wants to see tomorrow. But it does seem like it's pretty much sitting in the back seat behind this Amazon stock split right now. All right. But other than that, anyone particularly looking at anything that they want me to see in terms of levels or what they're currently holding in what positions? Zero hedge out there with some bear point. What? Last time Amazon stock split. Okay, yeah, that was a bear chart. Yeah, last time apparently Amazon actually split. It literally just went down. That is kind of why I did say don't try to get into it right at the open, especially off a premium spike. That is something you definitely want to be cautious about because if you pretty much get right into Amazon at the beginning, that premium, and it starts to dip or sell off with the market, you're definitely gonna end up getting hurt, and I definitely would not want to see anyone get caught in the middle of that. How do I know what government will do tomorrow and maybe more dump tomorrow? Given the fact that we pretty much ran so hot into CPI data, it is entirely possible that we end up just getting a dump. Here's the only flip side about this is that pretty much every CPI data that we've had has been more hot than expected, basically. So we know that it's pretty much just going to put more pressure on this rate hike. That's pretty much inevitable at this point in time. But the only factor in which we're getting relief off of that is that pretty much we got out of Powell just what is that like last week that he mentioned it is that instead of raising a rate by 50 basis points, it's now going to be by 25. So it already seems like our fate is already in despite whatever the CPI data is going to be tomorrow because we already know what the Fed's pretty much anticipating of doing with the rate hike. So that's the other flip side on which I'm looking at is that it already feels like our fate is already determined, whatever that number comes out to be tomorrow, because they already gave us pretty much our instance of what they already plan to do. So I think it's just something of fact that if it's more drastic, more bad in terms of what we expect, then that's where it's going to be a little bit more pressure on the feds, in which we're going to be looking to see if the feds pretty much change their tune. Are they really going to go back to make it even higher than what it is that they pretty much announced last week? That's going to be the biggest part right now. But other than that, I think that everyone assumes that the CPI data tomorrow is going to be bad. I think anyone can throw a dart at that to really say that it is going to be bad. But the other fact is how if it's more bad than what we pretty much anticipate across the board, that all the analysts, all the government is pretty much expecting. If it's worse than expected, that it's really that bad, that they have to go back to make maybe making it 50 basis points on that rate hike, and basically scratching the 25 that they pretty much gave us last week. The market's gonna take fair out of that, and then yes, we would end up dropping tomorrow. And so if that's the case, then we will likely see Amazon give back a lot of these gains here after hours off of the stock split. And it's likely going to end up pulling a Google, in which we also saw Google give back all of its gains basically off of its stock split announcement. So that is the other flip side, Melody. I think you brought up a great point with that question. Is that be cautious in case of Amazon pulling out what Google did once it did its stock split. And the other factor is also is that we've seen how much flow we've gotten out of Google. So just be cautious about the fact that we are going to be seeing the flow alerts go probably nuts tomorrow off of Amazon. And just be cautious about that in case it does end up getting a sell-off. That's pretty much just going to determine that you're seeing buyers that are having FOMO, or B, they're looking to get into longer term positions. So it's entirely possible if CPI data is worse than what the entire market expects it to be, that this could pretty much give back most of its gains, right? And that's you do not want to be caught. And that's why exactly why I said make sure that you pretty much do not try to get in and jump the gun right at the gate of the opening bell tomorrow. Wait to see for the setup to pretty much make itself pretty much there for you. And then we'll be calling it out level by level. I guess it also determines where we pretty much open tomorrow. That's why I said, everything that I looked at on that chart right now is pretty much very suspect in terms of what it's going to be pre-market tomorrow morning after all everyone whoever speaks and all the upgrades. All right. But it's entirely possible it can basically sell off following the CPI data. So that's the bottom line that I pretty much want to stress there. All right. But other than that, looking at some of the names again, I know that you guys wanted me to look at some things. Um, UVXY, the return of the fear before the Fed management. It's entirely possible. I mean, I know that we were looking at the VIX today. I think despite the entire rally that we had today, that was pretty much the headline. I think me, Sig, and Tatum, we were pretty much all looking at the volatility index, VXX or VIX, and that was our major concern in which it was pretty much at a very key support level. I think if I even pull up the chart here, and I was pretty much looking directly at the VIX, you see that we were pretty much just sitting at support. And that was pretty much the major problem. We tried to wick under the support, but we're still holding the support level off of this little wedge. And I know that Avery was also looking at it pretty early on around lunchtime. That's what was pretty much still keeping us in fair right now. We literally bounced right where we should have, and that's what the major concern is. But I do expect again, I mean, this is just my anticipation that we get a gap up, it's just not going to hold, and then we end up seeing the VIX start to break out. That's ultimately what my fear is right now. But despite all that, I think we get a gap up of some sort, right? And that'll likely lead right into that CPI data. Whether that gap up holds after that CPI data, that's a question mark right now. And that's why you definitely wanted to keep a light position tonight. All right. So that I will point out. Looking at some of the things that you wanted me to peep at. Let's see, Lamb Research. I think that is LRCX. Take a peep at this. I have not looked at this chart in quite a while. I also do see. I think is this one that actually. Yeah, it looks like it actually hit its 52-week low as well. This is another candidate bounced beautifully yesterday off of its 52-week low. So we see why it pretty much propped up as much as it did, up almost $27 today. That is a hell of a move that it made, definitely. Looking at pretty much at our downtrend resistance here is pretty much what I would want to take a peep at. In which, let's see where our downtrend resistance pretty much lies. See if the line chart pretty much tells me where I am. Oh, so we're a little bit more higher than we expected. All right, so now let's take a peep at it. All right, that goes right into the bodies of the candle. So nice little spot right there. I do like this one here. We do see you have that beautiful rounding bottom, beautifully right off of that 52-week low. The other thing that I am taking into consideration is this little tiny gap fill that you have sitting here. That's something you definitely want to take into consideration tomorrow following the CPI data. If you start to see this start to roll over, this is what you definitely want to pretty much put into play, is filling this gap here. Below this level of 504.75, you're going to likely end up retracing and giving out this entire price action that we had today and filling that gap. Otherwise, if we get a move to the upside here, I'm pretty much looking at our levels right here into this gap that we have also at the top here. Let me just change the color, in which this gap will potentially put us right into the downtrend resistance basically. Just depends basically how quickly we get up there. But you are sitting at a gap here above 538.76. That completes at 539. So about $1 and change gap that we're sitting at right now. Your resistance that you want to see this continue to make a move over is pretty much sitting right about here. Is what I'm looking for this to make a move over. You want to see this get a move right over 530, and then above that 530 gives you that $8 move right into the gap fill. And that's how I would look to be playing this until it ends up breaking over 530. I would pretty much stay clear of this one, and it's likely in the fact that you're going to end up seeing a retracement towards gap fill. That's why I say that. Wait for the move over the 530, and then you can end up playing to the gap fill. Otherwise, if you really want an early entry, and this is why I say early, is that you could potentially look for this over 525 mark, 525.50. You see that break over that, and that'll be an early entry if you potentially wanted to take that one. All right, and that's what I would pretty much look at in terms of lamb research. So over 525.50, that'll be your early entry. Otherwise, you wait for the break over 530 and you play right into the gap fill at 538, 539, and that'll be a beautiful one here tomorrow. And hopefully the chips do continue to run. I know that pretty much for most of the day, and you probably heard 6-8 as well. Nvidia was showing quite the strength. I was actually liking AMD towards the end of the day, so that was another one I liked. So I do think that the chip names can continue to make a move here. Obviously, it depends broader market here. What are we looking at in terms of CPI data? How the market's going to react to that? But this is definitely one I like behind Nvidia and behind AMD as well. I think I like that one in terms of the sector there. Definitely a beautiful one. Looking at XLE, I know that XLE has just been mooning. But it was nice to see a nice little retracement. It actually finally broke that uptrend that it had. A nice little trend line support that we pretty much just draw right across the board here. And we see that we basically just gapped down and we broke that trend line support. So if we're looking to hold, I will look to see to maybe hold right here. This will be my zone in which I will look to hold. This will be potentially my demand zone is what I'm looking at basically. This is where we want to see buyers pretty much step in between here of 73.52 and down below towards 73.15. That would be my demand zone in which I would look for buyers to step in if we continue to trace back and give up today's entire price action. Otherwise, if we're looking for a move back to the upside here, I do want to see if we can attempt to basically fill this gap that we created on this breakdown. And then that'll also put us in towards retesting this downtrend break, this trend line support as resistance here, which will pretty much put us right about 77.54 is what I'm looking at in terms of retesting this prior support as resistance now into that gap fill as well. And that's what I'll be looking at for energy. The only fact is that I think until tech pretty much cools off, I think that we're going to see energy pretty much just flatten out here. I don't think there's going to be too much downside neither. It's just that it's going to be in a range right now until the money starts to flow right back into the energy sector as a whole right now. So you could see a little bit of a consolidation here, and which is basically just puts you in this range between this demand zone and your supply being your gap fill above, in which we just go sideways until we see the basically the buyers just flow right out of tech. For right now, the pretty much all the buying pressure is within tech right now. Once we see that money start to rotate out of tech, then we'll likely see that money start to flow right back into energy. So for right now, my ideal scenario for energy right now will be looking to see as we approach this energy spot, this why am I saying energy spot? This demand zone in terms of these levels here between that 73.52 and down towards 73.14 as your demand zone in which you want to look to buy in that area. All right, and that will be basically where I would look to see energy hold until the money flows right back into the sector and we can approach this gap fill at the top here. All right, so that's what I would pretty much look at as the sector as a whole. The other name you said you want to look at was Microsoft. Let me take a peep at Microsoft. I know that Sig was talking about Microsoft wanting to rip, that it looked really good. I'm assuming that he was probably looking at it intraday, if I'm not mistaken. If I just take a peep at it. And it actually looks like I had a nice little rising wedge action that was pretty much drawn out early on. Let's see if. Alright. I mean, intraday, I still see it's just a beautiful uptrend. Nothing that pretty much tells me that it's any breakdown at this point. But if I'm looking at a larger scale here in terms of levels, basically, let me take a look, see what we're looking at from a larger perspective here. One sec. Just taking a look at something real quick. All right. So basically what I'm looking at here, let's see for our defined downtrend resistance. See what we're looking at. Come on. Let me just get that. All right, there we go. So that's our defined downtrend resistance. That's what I'm looking at. So basically you have upside up towards 296. 296 half is what I'll be looking at in terms of your downtrend resistance. That's potentially what you're looking at. Otherwise, if I start to dial on to look at particular levels, obviously you see your defined down, your not defined downwards, but your gap fill here towards the bottom. That's pretty much the first thing you want to identify. So we do see pretty much if we do get the breakdown here tomorrow, following that CPI data, we're risking pretty much breaking down into this gap fill below 280.79. Otherwise, if we're looking to make a break towards this downtrend resistance, we're looking to pretty much set a new high here. 289.62 would be breaking this high. And then above that, we're looking to also cross the 9-day moving average, which is sitting at 290.37. And above that 290.37 would pretty much put you also your 18-day moving average 291.56 as well. And then pretty much my first PT would be 291.81 is what I'm looking at if we can cross those moving averages. All right. If I'm actually looking at in terms of my zone right here, as I see previously from where we broke down, it's pretty much looking right about here is where I'm sitting at. This is basically what I'm looking at in terms of where we broke down previously. This is where the spot, the zone in which I would look to take my profits, in which that pretty much puts you right up towards smacking 292 off of my pretty much what I would say is my demand zone in which I see sellers stepping in. So 292 would be my high end move for you. But basically, my first PT would have been that 291.81 following the break off of those two moving averages of the 9-day and the 18-day moving average. All right. But 292 is basically what you're looking at for upside. So if we get continuation, that'll be a beautiful one. But you definitely want to see it back over the high of 289.60. And that'll set you up nicely into those two moving averages of the 9-day and the 18-day moving average. And that'll be a beautiful one. All right. Jay, did you swing any Amazon, my guy? I hope you did. I'm sure there's a few people, and we're probably gonna see some nice gain point tomorrow, which they're gonna be putting up over like 20K in gains. I would not be surprised. All right, I'm gonna look at these last two names real quick, and then we'll likely call it a wrap here. NRSP. I'm assuming you pretty much meant that NRSN. Is that penny stock that they were looking at? I'm assuming that's what you meant, Ty. No way. Dude, I'm a little bit salty right now. I'm not gonna lie. That the timing on that, I can't believe that ended up happening today. Literally just the timing on that. It's just literally I don't know even know what to say about it. I literally don't. I can't believe they actually chose like today of all days to end up doing something like that. They couldn't even wait until next week to like let CPI data just play out, and then let me have a chance at getting in potentially next week on like a nice setup. But it is what it is. Can't do nothing about it now. All right. By the way, Ty, I'm assuming you were talking about this NRSN that we were pretty much. It was flying around in Tendy shop as well, and I know they were talking about it. So I'm assuming this is the ticker you've been looking at. I mean, Jay, we've been waiting for that thing for like 5 years. I feel like I was gonna get old before it ended up happening, but I'm glad it ended up happening. They pretty much hit every ticker now. I think that needed to be having a stock split. They literally hit every single one of them. So I can't say that there's much left. I think the only two names, Jay, since you probably didn't hear me, what I was mentioning is that I think the only two names that are probably just left for that stock split would be likely names like a Chipotle or a Booking, just because of the fact that those are the only other two names that are stand out that are pretty much trading over that 1K mark. But obviously, I'm not gonna go just putting a position in that just for the sake of that. But those would be the two names that pretty much stand out. Chipotle more so would be that name that I say it's like, all right, when are you gonna get a stock split here, Chipotle? Because that thing is trading insanely crazy. But other than that, looking at this NRSN ticker, it's a little penny ticker. I mean, not too much that I like about trading pennies here. I mean, obviously, I think this one does have options if I'm not mistaken, so that's why I was pretty much flying around the attendee shop. But you do see your defined little gap fill here that you have over this 180 mark, sitting up towards 190. It's about a 10-cent gap fill. If I wanted to say at what point I would potentially get in on this penny stock, if I really had to, if you probably put a gun to my head and told me that I had to buy a penny stock, then I would look to get into this one over 166 is what I would potentially look to get into this. Otherwise, as it sits currently right now, this is just going sideways. There's nothing that I pretty much want to be looking at just yet, or I just want to throw in money just for the sake of pretty much having this in whatever portfolio, just having it sit there and maybe having about what like 20, 50 shares, depending upon what your available capital is. But if you're pretty much looking for it for the long haul, yeah, I mean, I don't mind you end up buying shares here basically. As long as you, I would say that your ideal support that you pretty much want to look for to really get the ideal entry spot is this 140 mark. Otherwise, if you're looking for that short squeeze type of momentum or you're looking for that breakout, I'm looking to get a move over that 166 mark and at least play it towards this gap fill here over this 180 towards that 190, that 10-cent gap fill, and you can make some bank out of that. Otherwise, again, if you're looking for the longer term move out of this, you just start to scale into some shares, maybe buy yourself about 10, 20 shares here, and just play around with it. And then once you see it start to make a breakout over maybe that 166 level, then you start to add to it. That's how I would go about playing this penny stock tie. I mean, I've had a lot of history with penny stocks, but they do definitely move very sporadic. So that's what you definitely want to be careful about. These are pretty much like buy and hold, but buy and hold thinking about the fact that this may not end up making that breakout until maybe about what 30 days from now. So that's what you pretty much have to have the mindset of when you're trying to play penny stocks. Just know the fact that it's going to take a while for it to play out. All right, and that's what I will caution you about. Okay. But those are hopefully you got the levels I was pretty much just saying. But ideally, I would say hopefully it retraces back to 140, and that will be your ideal risk to reward spot in which you want to start to scale into a position. All right. But that's what I would look at for that one. There was one other ticker someone mentioned, and I'll probably wrap it up with that one real quick. Someone mentioned coin. Let me take a peep at coin. Actually, speaking of coin, before I actually look at it real quick, what is crypto doing? Wow, crypto is actually booming. I will say that. I mean, crypto's up about 3K here, pretty nicely. I do like that. I did not even look at crypto all day. I should have probably looked at that a little bit early on. The CR line chart, real quick, pretty much gives us our downtrend resistance, very defined level. So I do like the fact that it's a very defined downtrend resistance. That's very much very appealing to me, which is pretty much what I need right now. So looking at that downturn resistance, we see pretty much ballpark we're pretty much flirting with here is right around 187 here potentially is what we're looking at. If I dial in pretty much towards the 2 hour chart here so we get a better image of this, let's see what we're looking at. And it actually looked like it broke down on a little rising wedge action here today. Is that why it pretty much, see, did it actually break down on this rising wedge? I actually want to see if it did intraday here. Take a peep at it. Yeah, actually it did. It did break down on this rising wedge action here intraday. So that was definitely not a great close to it. It was a hell of a pump that it got. The fact that it was pretty much heavily oversold, that pretty much gives you the reason, basically, the fact that how much it pumped, that was insanely crazy, and that is a fat gap that that thing created. Jeez. So obviously you see the gap here. I don't think I need to highlight it, but below 174, you're pretty much risking that gap fill. So that's something that you pretty much have as your identified risk here, basically, towards a free fall. You're looking toward under that 174 mark. Otherwise, if I'm trying to scale out to a little bit more to give you a better area towards this little gap fill that we have, not the gap fill, but the downtrend resistance, looking at potential where we're looking to break over here tomorrow, this will be my ideal spot in which I'm looking to get a break over, which I'll pretty much just highlight. I'll do it yellow. So pretty much looking to break over this 182 mark is what I'll be watching for. We get a move over this 182, and then you're potentially looking at going right into this resistance here. Right around 185, as high as 186 is what you're going to be potentially looking at as I look at this downtrend resistance. So right into this zone is basically is what I'm looking at. Right into this zone is what I'm looking at, in which you play this over that 182 mark and you play it right into 186 into that downtrend resistance, and then you look to see if you get a break over the downtrend resistance. If you get a break over the downtrend resistance, then I'm watching this level right here, in which I see that this has pretty much been a confluence level of prior resistance and also a very critical breakdown that we had back from basically the third week of February. And that pretty much sits right here at this 195.70 mark. So that's what I would look at for coin. Again, over 182, then you're looking at basically targeting 185, 186. Over the 186 mark, then you're looking at 195, in which that's going to be a rather breakout move that you're going to have similar to today's price action. All right. So I do like that one in particular. Granted the fact that Bitcoin is actually up right now. The only thing I think I'm looking at, I mean, on a larger scale, I don't think that Bitcoin's going to necessarily hold here. That's my only trepidation about that. But it was definitely a nice snipe if you got in here at the bottom. And I don't mind taking this right up to the downtrend resistance towards that 185, 186. Above that, I think it's a little bit of a pause to concern, which I don't think it's going to necessarily break over this downtrend resistance quite yet. All right. That's where I would say try to make sure that you secure your profits around that 185, 186, and then leave your runners to see if it can break over that downtrend resistance and get that massive push towards 195 on a breakout. All right. And that's what I would say about that. All right. Other than that, what about AutoZone? Actually, Pure Ace, I did not think about AutoZone at all. That might be a candidate. I think that's one that actually trades pretty darn high, if I'm not mistaken. I have not looked at that ticker. Actually, I probably can say that actually definitively. I don't think I have looked at this ticker. This thing is at, damn, that thing is pretty damn high. Jeez, that is very high. You do have a great possibility of this one. I can't rule it out. I mean, that's why I did say earlier when I mentioned it first, besides Chipotle and Booking, there's a few other names that I do have to look at that are probably trading north of that 1K mark, and which is usually ideal candidates to get that stock split. But it's just the fact that looking at pretty much the brand names in which we pretty much go in basically chronological order, I think at this point, the fact going to Apple, Nvidia, Google, now Amazon, just being that those are like the blockbuster names. I think the only other blockbuster name behind all of what's already announced is pretty much Chipotle. That's literally why it stands out to me. But I would throw AutoZone here in the same category as Booking, which those are low key names that you basically, if you really wanted to play it in that fashion, and this is for maybe those of you that have long term portfolios, is that I would look to get shares on those kind of names. That's basically how I would look to play it. I wouldn't necessarily try to get options, although options will give you a big premium spike once they do announce a stock split. Vice versa, it can be very painful as well. So if you were trying to necessarily play those names in which it could be potentially the next stock split, I would say try to hold shares. Me personally, and this is why I say it's a personal preference. If I was really gonna hold shares on something, it would be Chipotle. I'm just, I mean, I'm just of the mindset. I'm sure everyone has their own ticker that they likely have as the next scenario of the next great stock split. But that just seems like out of all the names that we already had, following all the blockbuster names, the Tesla, Amazon, Google, Nvidia, it does seem like Chipotle is just fitting at some point this year to be the next candidate. That's pretty much what I'm looking at. All right. But other than that, that kind of wraps up. Hopefully, my Amazon chart. I just want to see what is it up right now. We're still sitting pretty nice on Amazon. So hopefully we pretty much hold this. I would not doubt the fact that we go over the 3K mark rather tomorrow morning once we see some more chatter about this and we see maybe some analyst upgrades following this stock split. So that's what I'll pretty much just be waiting for tomorrow morning. I'm gonna try and hop on live tomorrow a little bit early before the opening bell here to see what Amazon's sitting at and to see what crucial levels I'll be watching for because I may end up taking a day trade on it particularly. I don't think that I'm going to be looking to necessarily swing unless I do a call debit spread, which if I do a call debit spread, then I'll pretty much announce it to let you guys know what legs I'm pretty much looking at in terms of playing the upside, in which I'll look to get likely a spread towards next week. And it also depends if market conditions are ideal tomorrow. Maybe I do one that expires this week. It just depends on market conditions tomorrow following the data. And that's what I'll just basically pretty much just wait for. All right. Transitory, I appreciate that. Guys, appreciate you guys joining me for the live here. Hopefully, gave you guys some nice insight in terms of what I expect, what I'm looking at. The Amazon levels, if you guys pretty much caught me in here late, again, I will be on live tomorrow morning, pretty much looking at the levels come tomorrow morning. I'm sure it's likely gonna be changing and probably give us a 360 here tomorrow morning because I do not think it's just gonna sit here at this 2980 level by tomorrow morning. So there's gonna likely be some changes to the levels I'm looking at, so I'll wait and I will probably highlight that before the opening bell tomorrow. I'll probably hop on pretty early, and hopefully catch Avery as well so we can chat about it. But other than that, that kind of wraps up today's live, guys. Hopefully you guys pretty much took some good insight on that. But I will see you guys tomorrow morning on live again, and you guys all have a great evening. All right, it's